Consider a war that divided nations, separated families, and altered the course of history. This is not a tale from the annals of ancient times, but a significant event from the mid-20th century. We're delving into the story of the 1947-48 Indo-Pak War. This war, steeped in mystery and marked by bravery, has its roots in the partitions of India and Pakistan, a time when the Indian subcontinent was carved into two separate entities, triggering a tumultuous migration as families were torn apart and communities uprooted. This was a time of immense political and social upheaval, a prelude to a conflict that would change the trajectory of both nations forever. The stage was set, the actors ready, and the world watched with bated breath as two newly born nations prepared for a war that would define their futures. But what led to this devastating conflict? And how did it shape the destinies of two young nations? It all began with the partition, a painful wound that is still raw even after decades. Imagine a world suddenly divided, where lines drawn on a map become chasms between people. In the aftermath of British colonial rule, the Indian subcontinent found itself severed into two separate nations, India and Pakistan. This dramatic split, known as the Partition of 1947, was marked by a mass migration of people across newly formed borders. The migration was not a peaceful journey. It was marred by violence, bloodshed, and loss. Heartbreaking stories of families torn apart, of homes and lives left behind, still echo in the hearts of those who lived through this tumultuous time. Let's take a moment to reflect on one such story. Meet Ravi, a young man at the time of the partition. He recalls the chaos, the uncertainty, and the fear that gripped his hometown. "We didn't know if we were going to live or die," he says, his voice laden with the weight of the past. The memory of leaving his childhood home, of saying goodbye to friends and neighbors, still brings a tear to his eye. The partition sparked a tinderbox of tension and resentment, a potent mix that would soon erupt into war, with people on both sides of the border feeling wronged, wrongs they believed could only be righted through conflict. And so, the stage was set for a conflict that would forever mark the history of the subcontinent. With tensions running high, it was only a matter of time before the first shots were fired. And so, the battle began. The year was 1947, a time marked by heightened emotions and political turmoil. The Indian subcontinent was now divided into two separate nations, India and Pakistan. The division, however, was far from peaceful. As the first shots echoed across the region, the reality of war sunk in. The initial stages of the war were marked by a series of key battles. The battlegrounds of Kashmir echoed with the sounds of gunfire and artillery shells. The strategies employed were as unique as the terrain itself. Indian forces, facing a formidable opponent, relied heavily on their knowledge of the local geography. Let's take a moment to remember the brave soldiers who fought in this war. Among them was Havildar Karam Singh, a soldier of the Sikh regiment. He fought valiantly in the Battle of Tithwar, displaying exceptional courage and resilience. His story is but a glimpse into the lives of countless soldiers who risked everything for their respective nations. The war escalated quickly, with both sides showing no signs of backing down. Battle strategies were constantly evolving, reflecting the dynamic nature of the conflict. While the soldiers fought on the front lines, the leaders were engaged in a different kind of battle, one that involved diplomatic negotiations and political maneuvering. The war was raging, and there seemed to be no end in sight. But as we will see, every war has its turning points, and this one was no different. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the turning tide of the 1947 Indo-Pak War. But amidst the chaos and destruction, a glimmer of hope emerged. Just when the situation seemed dire, the strategic acumen of the Indian military began to shine through. Innovative tactics were implemented, turning the tide of the war. The Indian forces, in a bold move, initiated Operation Bison, aimed at recapturing the critical high ground. The operation was a resounding success, significantly altering the balance of the conflict. Let's consider the personal story of a brave soldier named Ramesh. As part of Operation Bison, Ramesh and his platoon were tasked with reclaiming a strategic peak. Despite being outnumbered and under heavy fire, they fought tenaciously, refusing to yield. Their audacity paid off when reinforcements arrived, tipping the balance in their favor. Ramesh's story is but one of countless tales of valor that marked the turning point of this war. And so, against all odds, India emerged victorious. The war was over, but the scars it left were deep and lasting. Its aftermath was felt in the hearts and minds of the people, in the political landscapes of both nations, and in the relations between India and Pakistan, which were forever altered. The political impact was profound. In India, the war reinforced the need for a strong military and strategic alliances. It was a lesson in the importance of preparedness, of never underestimating an adversary. Pakistan, on the other hand, was left to grapple with the reality of a dream unfulfilled, a land not acquired, a victory not attained. This war also had significant social implications. It sowed the seeds of mistrust and hostility between two nations that were once part of the same fabric. It resulted in the displacement of countless people, the destruction of homes, and the loss of lives. The partition, followed by the war, fueled a wave of communal violence that added to the human suffering. To truly understand the impact of this war, let's consider the story of Ramesh, a civilian whose life was irrevocably changed. Ramesh was a young boy of 10 when the war broke out. His family was forced to flee their home, leaving behind everything they knew. The trauma of displacement, the loss of his childhood home, and the sights and sounds of war haunted him for years. The war might have ended in 1948, but for Ramesh and many like him, its echoes continued to reverberate. The war also cast a long shadow over Indo-Pak relations. It was the first of many conflicts, a precursor to a troubled relationship marked by suspicion and animosity. It set the stage for the contentious issue of Kashmir, a bone of contention that continues to be a flashpoint between the two nations. And so, the 1947-48 Indo-Pak War ended, leaving behind a legacy of courage, resilience, and a question that still lingers: could this war have been avoided?